Yes, Professor Maron, as you have pointed out, China actually has become the first country to approve Aficamten and launch it globally.
Yes.
And giving us this gives us some opportunity to have some real-world experience. So, Professor Jin, could you share with us some Chinese real-world data on Aficamten's performance with us?
Yes, Aficamten was approved in China for the treatment of obstructive hypertrophic cardiomyopathy on December 16th, 2025, 3 days earlier than in the United States and 3 months earlier than in Europe. After becoming commercialized, available in China on March 13th, 9 centers started a real-world study and enrolled 40 patients within 2 weeks. The 8-week midterm results so far have been very encouraging. As early as 2 weeks after starting Aficamten, patients showed clear reductions in LVOT gradient and NT-proBNP levels, together with improvements in KCCQ scores and NYHA functional class. These benefits were sustained through week 8. Importantly, during the study period, no patients experienced a decline in LVEF below 50%. Next, we will wait for the 12-week study to be completed, and then we will gather more real-world experience from China to share with our users. Right now, the main challenge for Aficamten in China is that it has not yet covered by national insurance, so patients still have to pay a lot out of pocket, with the average monthly cost being around $1,000. We sincerely hope that the drug can be included in medical insurance coverage as early as possible, which would greatly reduce the financial burden on hypertrophic cardiomyopathy patients and allow more patients to benefit from their important therapy.
And I just wanted to take an opportunity maybe for 1 second just to mention one other thing about relative to this too, which is that, the fact that Aficamten was approved first in the entire globe here in China, and then the data that you were just speaking about, about the real world experience that's being put together and ultimately published with Aficamten as well as the other data, it really reflects just how much the progress has been made in China in terms of cardiovascular research and care. And we talked about that this morning a little bit, and I just want to emphasize that point here by saying that when you look at the papers that are published, the original research advancing the science around cardiomyopathy and HCM, 20% of that literature today comes from China, which is absolutely amazing and really underscores just how much enthusiasm, focus, and progress really has been made and will continue to be made, and how much we're learning as a global community from China on this as well. I think that's a really important point.
Beyond the obstructive HCM, we know that the Aficamten HCM trial of Aficamten for symptomatic non-obstructive HCM has achieved a positive result. What's your opinion on Aficamten failed in the Odyssey trial while Aficamten succeeded? This appears not to be a straightforward class effect.
Yeah. Well, I'll start by saying first that, I think that the results of Acacia, meaning the results of Aficamten in symptomatic non-obstructive HCM, in which Aficamten was shown in that trial to improve functional capacity as well as how patients feel, I think is a transformative moment, actually, in HCM again. Earlier, we talked about those kind of different transformative moments in the past. I think we're looking at one now with Acacia because, I think for many, many years, I and many others, I mean, you may be included in this, I didn't know if we'd ever have a therapy for non-obstructive HCM. And that's why we always called it the biggest unmet treatment need in the disease was those patients. And as we all take care of them, it's very frustrating for the patients because we had really nothing for them. So the fact that we may be able to provide a treatment if it's approved for non-obstructive HCM is really, to me, a huge leap forward. Milestone. I agree with that. It is a milestone. It's a milestone. That's right. Milestone, transformative. And it also will help, I think, in another way, simplify for a lot of cardiologists treatment because you may be looking at one drug that now we can kind of cover the full spectrum from obstructive to non-obstructive. And I think that's going to make things more streamlined and easier for both physicians and patients here as well. So I think that's a huge moment. Okay. And, why did Acacia succeed and why did Odyssey come close but just miss? I think probably, if you ask me, it may have to do with, again, coming back to this idea that with Aficamten, the pharmacologic profile is really favorable here. Because if you look at Odyssey with mavacamten, one of the reasons I think mavacamten came close but didn't quite make it was that the difficulty with mavacamten in balancing efficacy and safety in Odyssey was the issue. And what I mean by that is that you had over 20% of patients had systolic dysfunction with mavacamten, which meant that you had 25% of patients that needed to stop temporarily the drug or discontinue mavacamten during the trial, which then made it much more difficult to demonstrate efficacy. And I think with Aficamten, that is less of an issue. And I think we'll ultimately see that was less of an issue once Acacia is fully published. But I think that may be one of the differences to answer your question about why one came close but didn't and why the other one succeeded.
Yeah, as you pointed out, Aficamten has become a CMI code for all HCM for the whole spectrum.
Yep.
What do you think its indication could even expand further in the future? For example, Fabry disease with LV obstruction, or even heart failure with preserved ejection fraction?
Yeah, I think that's exactly right. I think you have to consider that with the Acacia trial being positive, that one next population where you could potentially see benefit would be the non-HCM HFpEF patients. I don't think it's all of HFpEF necessarily, but I think there is certainly a large group of patients with HFpEF that overlap morphologically and phenotypically with non-obstructive HCM, where you could then see a drug like Aficamten also providing benefit. Okay. Obviously, as we know, this is an area where there's a lot of active investigation right now going on with myosin inhibitor in the HFpEF population. I think we'll eventually know whether it has benefit in the next couple of years, but I definitely think, and I'm encouraged that that's the next phase.
We look forward to it.
Yeah.
Yes.
东方问道。